Grade 8s, welcome to your Wednesday math lesson. So, we talked about evaluating algebraic expressions when you have whole numbers. Today we're going to be looking at evaluating expressions if you have integers, so negative numbers, and we're also going to look at fractions. So, first things first, let's do evaluating algebraic expressions with negative numbers. There were a couple questions on the last worksheet that had them, designed to just kind of help you try them out. So this is what we're going to be touching on. Number one is -4, and then in brackets e minus 2. So first things first is we're going to plug in our e. So we have -4, and then we have 5 minus 2, -4, and then 5 minus 2 is 3. So now I have -4 times 3. If it's a negative times a positive number, it's going to be a negative answer. So I have -4 times positive 3. It means my number is -12. Okay? So negative times a positive equals a negative, negative times negative equals positive, positive times positive equals positive, and positive times a negative equals negative. So opposite negative, the same positive. So that's number one. Number two is 2, and then in brackets we have a squared plus b squared. A is equal to 2 and b is equal to -3. First things first is I'm going to plug in my numbers. So I have 2, and then a is 2 squared plus b, which is -3. I'm just going to put it in a bracket because it's a little easier to see, squared, and then I have a bracket around it. Next thing I have to do is my exponents. So I have 2, and then I have 2 times 2 is 4, plus -3 times -3 is going to equal +9, because a negative times a negative equals positive. So I have 4 plus 9. So now I have to do 4 plus 9. So 4 plus 9 equals 13. 2 times 13 equals 26. So that's my final answer. My last one here is p squared plus r over -5. Remember when you have this problem here, it means it is division. You just do division as your last step because you have to be able to get a whole number up here before you can divide it by the bottom number. So my first step is plugging in my numbers. So I have p squared. P is 7. So I have 7 squared plus r, which is -4. So plus -4 over -5. 7 squared is 49. So I have 49 plus -4 over -5. 49 plus a negative. If it's plus a negative, opposite operations or opposite symbols means I go to the left. So it's technically 49 minus 4 because I'm going to the left. So I get 45 over -5. 45 divided by -5, I have a positive number divided by a negative. It means it's going to be a negative number. And 45 divided by 5 equals 9. And that's that. So it's the same rules apply as when you were doing it with whole numbers. The only thing is now you just have to follow the rules of operations with integers. So you apply the rules that we've talked about. So if you're multiplying or dividing, it means you have to might change the symbols up. Same with adding and subtracting. You're basically substituting your numbers in there and you're following the rules of integers. So that's all that is. And then we're going to do a few problems with fractions. So evaluating algebraic expressions with fractions is very similar to when we were doing order of operations with fractions. So way back when, you basically just plug in your numbers that you're given and do the operations with fractions. And that's all it is. So we're going to do a couple of practice problems here. Right off the bat, they do look kind of crazy, but I'm going to break them down. So we are going to evaluate to see just exactly how they work. So my first problem is z minus 1 plus x. Z is equal to 3 wholes and 5/6. So I have 3 and 5/6 minus this 1 is a whole number. So if you have a regular number in a fraction problem like this, it means it's a whole number. Okay? If there's a little fraction beside it, that means yes, it's a fraction. So I have 3 wholes and 5/6 minus 1 whole plus 1/6, because x is equal to 1/6. So to do this, I do order of operations. I don't have any multiplication, division, brackets, exponents, nothing. All I have is subtraction and addition. So I can do this just left to right because it doesn't matter what order I do subtraction or addition in. So I have 3 wholes and 5/6 minus 1 whole. If I am taking a whole number, like 3/5 minus 1 whole number, this 5/6 stays the same. So it's going to be 5/6. All I'm doing is taking this whole number, 3, and I'm subtracting this whole number minus 1. And that equals 2. So I have 2 and 5/6. There was no fraction involved in this operation right here, so I didn't have to change my fraction. That's why I just put it over here as just a placeholder until I figured out what my whole number was. So I have 2 and 5/6. My last step is to add 1/6 to it. This one's pretty easy because I'm just adding fractions, but they already have a common denominator. If they already have a common denominator, I don't need to change anything. So if I have a whole number plus nothing here, so there's no whole number here, that whole number stays the same because I'm not changing that whole number. Now all I have left is 5/6 plus 1/6. I don't have to change my denominator because they're already a common denominator. All I have to do is just add my numerators in this case. So I have 5 plus 1. 5 plus 1 is 6 over 6. 6 over 6 is equal to 1 whole. So I can just do 2 wholes plus 1 whole equals 3 wholes. So my final answer is 3. So all it is you're just using your rules for adding, subtracting, multiplying, dividing fractions. And that's all you're doing. Let's do another problem. And what you're going to have today for homework is going to be a bunch of integer questions where, again, it's going to give you what the number is. So it's going to be like h plus r minus -3. It'll give you what h and r stand for. So all you're doing is just basically plugging in those numbers and finding the answers. I'm going to give a couple of fraction problems on there. I had a hard time trying to find a good fraction worksheet because a lot of them got a little bit too crazy. That's not something that you're going to be looking at until end of grade 9, grade 10. So I'm going to just put in a couple of them that are going to equal some nice numbers to work with. Especially because I know it can look a little daunting when you're suddenly using fractions in algebra. So we're going to break this down. 2 is I have p times r in brackets r minus p over 4 minus 3. So my first step is going to be plugging in my numbers. So p is equal to 2 and r is equal to 4. So I have 2 times 4 because pr means multiplying. So I have p, which is 2, and r, which is 4. So 2 times 4. And then in my brackets, I have r minus p. R is equal to 4 minus p, which equals 2, over 4 and minus 3. Now I can do my operations. 2 times, or I do my brackets first. So I have 2 times 4. I'm going to try and do this over here. So 2 times 4. 4 minus 2 is equal to 2. And I have over 4 minus 3. 2 times 4 equals 8 times 2 So if I did 8 bracket 2 or 8 times 2, either way it works. Over 4 minus 3. 8 times 2 equals 16 over 4 minus 3. So in this case, I have an improper fraction. Remember how when we were doing fractions, if you had an improper fraction as your answer, you have to put it into a proper form, which is a mixed number or a whole number. In this case, how many times does 4 fit into 16 equally? So I have 4, 8, 12, 16. It fits in 4 times equally, and there's nothing left over. So I have 4 wholes. So 16 over 4 equals 4 wholes. Now I minus 3 wholes. 4 minus 3 equals 1. So I have 1 whole. So my answer to this question is 1 whole. So that's really what it is you're just doing your operations with fractions. Like I said, the questions you're going to have are going to be pretty simple because they're not going to be anything too daunting. We might do a couple questions where your answer might be a fraction. So your answer would be like, you know, when all is done and dusted, all you basically are doing is plugging in your fractions. So you could have a question like 5 over 7 plus 1 over 3, and then you just do your operations with fractions, which is finding your common denominator and adding them together like we were doing earlier this year. But for the most part, they're going to be some really nice numbers. I don't want to give you anything too crazy. And that's all it's going to be. So that's going to be homework, is going to be a few questions on integers and a few questions on fractions. We talked about decimals back on Monday. I might do a couple of decimals on Friday. The other thing I really want to do with you guys is, like I said before, algebra and evaluating expressions and finding answers in algebra is my favorite unit. Usually with my grade 8 classes, I go all out for algebra, and I've designed escape rooms where like I bought a whole bunch of combination locks and lock boxes and all that. So you had to actually like go, and it was like a puzzle. You had to go do all these algebraic formulas in order to get the combination to a lockbox, and you had to get so many locks undone. And then you could actually, it would be like a prize or something I would give to everybody. Obviously this year I won't be able to do that. What I am hoping to do is design a virtual escape room on Google Forms. And how it's going to work is, in order to progress to the next page of Google Forms, you have to answer the questions correctly. And then you're going to have an end screen. And that would be your work for that day, is basically you progress through the Google Forms until you get to that end screen. And either you can take a screenshot of the end screen, or it'll give you like a phrase or a word or a message, and then you basically have to email me or submit on the VLE what that word or message is, and that's how I know you managed to make it to the end of the escape room. So I'm going to try doing something like that. If you guys are interested in it, let me know. I'm more than happy to try to set something up like that. If not, that's fine. We can just continue on as normal. So if you have any gripes or grievances with it, let me know. If I don't hear anything, I'm just going to assume you guys are okay with it. If there are issues with being able to do that on your device or something, let me know, and I will be able to send you maybe a PDF version of an escape room where you still have to, you just do it on pen and paper, and you have to try to decode a message at the end. But anyway, that's basically it for today. Thank you guys so much for all your hard work, and everything I've been hearing from you guys has been fantastic. And I will see you guys Friday.